Hey everyone, welcome back. So it looks like you're thinking about leasing some computer equipment.
Definitely a smart move, especially these days.
Absolutely. We're diving deep into computer lease agreements today.
Yeah,
Figuring out exactly what they are, why they matter, and what to watch out for before you sign anything.
definitely a lot to cover.
So let's get right into it. The source we're looking at today really stresses how leasing can be a much more affordable way to get your hands on some awesome computer equipment.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially now when technology's changing so fast.
Right.
Buying outright can be a huge expense.
For sure. So leasing can be a total game changer for businesses or even just individuals, you know?
Yeah. Anyone who needs that high-end tech, but maybe doesn't want to or can't,
Mhm.
make that big purchase right away.
Makes total sense.
Ah,
The source also talks about how important these agreements are for avoiding those, nightmarish contract disputes.
yeah, those are never fun.
Ever had a contract go sideways? It's
Oh.
the worst.
Oh.
So how can a good lease agreement actually help prevent that kind of situation?
Well, a well-written lease agreement, it kind of lays everything out on the table right from the start.
Okay.
It clearly defines each party's responsibilities, what's expected of them.
Hmm.
That way there's less room for misinterpretation or, disagreements later down the line.
I like that. So like a roadmap to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Exactly.
Now, the source also goes into some of the really key components of these agreements.
Oh, yeah.
Things like lease duration payment terms,
Mm-hmm.
equipment specs, maintenance, early termination conditions, and even liability.
All the essential pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, it can seem kind of overwhelming at first glance.
It definitely can be a lot to digest.
So where do you even begin? What's like the first thing someone should really wrap their head around?
I'd say start with the lease duration.
Okay,
That's basically how long you'll have the equipment for.
makes sense.
Think about it like renting an apartment. You wouldn't sign a year-long lease if you only need the place for a couple of months. Right.
Definitely not.
Same goes for computer equipment. You want to make sure the lease duration lines up with your actual needs.
Right, so if you know you only need a super powerful server for, say, 2 years,
Exactly.
you wouldn't want to be stuck with a 5-year lease.
Nope, not at all.
Okay, so lease duration, that's super important. What about those payment terms, though?
Payment terms are crucial. They spell out exactly when and how much you'll be paying over the course of the lease.
Oh,
Kind of like choosing a payment plan for a phone.
Yeah.
Do you want to pay it all up front in one lump sum or spread it out over monthly installments?
Hmm.
All of that should be crystal clear in the agreement.
all right. So we've got the time frame figured out and the payment plan all sorted.
Yep.
Next up, I guess, are those equipment specs.
Absolutely.
And this is where it gets really into the nitty-gritty.
This is where you dive into the details like processor speed, RAM, storage capacity, all that good stuff.
Oh, wow.
Imagine you're leasing, a high-end gaming rig.
Uh-huh.
But when it arrives, it's just a basic model.
Oh, no.
Not what you signed up for, right?
Yeah, that's the nightmare.
That's where those detailed specs in the agreement come in.
Okay.
They protect both you and the lessor by ensuring everyone's on the same page about exactly what equipment is being leased.
I see. So it's kind of like a safety net for both sides.
Precisely.
Now, what about maintenance? Who's responsible for, making sure all this equipment stays in good working order?
Good question. Maintenance is another key element that needs to be addressed in the agreement.
Yeah.
It should clearly state who's responsible for regular upkeep, repairs, all that.
Hmm.
Is it the lessor's responsibility or does it fall on you as the lessee?
I see.
Knowing this upfront can save a lot of headaches down the road,
Oh, for sure.
especially if something goes wrong and you're hit with unexpected costs.
Exactly. And what if something unexpected happens on my end? Say a project wraps up sooner than anticipated, or I suddenly need to upgrade to something more powerful.
That's where those early termination conditions come into play.
Oh, okay.
Think of them as your exit strategy.
Gotcha.
The agreement should lay out the procedures and any potential costs involved in ending the lease before the original date.
Right, right.
Having that clarity up front can save you from a lot of stress and uncertainty.
So you're not locked in no matter what.
Exactly.
Now, I've got to ask about the big one, the one that keeps people up at night.
What's that?
Liability.
Yeah.
What happens if the equipment gets damaged or, lost or, in a worst-case scenario, totally explodes?
Okay. Yeah, liability, that's a big one.
Who's responsible then?
Absolutely.
Right.
A clear liability clause in the agreement is essential. It outlines who's financially responsible if something happens to the equipment.
Mhm.
Let's say there's a power surge and the server gets fried.
Oh, no.
The liability clause will determine who covers the repair or replacement costs.
Okay.
So you're not left footing a huge bill unexpectedly.
Makes sense. You don't want any nasty surprises there.
Nope.
Now, the source also mentioned this thing called Legitt AI,
Oh, yeah.
which seems like a pretty awesome way to streamline this whole process.
It's really interesting how technology is being used to make these legal processes more accessible.
Right.
And Legitt AI seems like a great example. Instead of wrestling with dense legal jargon, you know,
Yeah, trying to decipher everything.
exactly. You can use this platform to input your specific needs, and it'll help create a tailored lease agreement that takes into account local laws and regulations.
So it's kind of like having a virtual lawyer helping you out.
Yeah, in a way.
It's pretty cool.
And it can potentially save you a ton of time in those legal headaches.
So we've covered a ton of ground today,
Yeah, we have.
from why leasing can be a great option to all those essential components of a lease agreement.
We've talked duration payments, specs, maintenance,
Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
early termination, even liability.
But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't really touched on yet,
That's true.
and it's a big one.
What is it?
The who.
Ah, yes, the who.
We've talked a lot about the lease agreement itself, but what about the company or person you're actually leasing from?
Choosing a reputable lessor is just as important as having a solid agreement.
That's a great point.
It's like finding a good mechanic for your car. You want someone you can trust.
Exactly.
So how do you find that trustworthy lessor? That's where you come in. You know,
Yeah.
do your due diligence, check their reputation, ask around, maybe even look at reviews.
So much good advice. And that wraps up our deep dive for today. But as always, the journey doesn't stop here.
There's always more to learn.
Definitely keep exploring, do your research, and remember, you're now armed with a ton of knowledge about computer lease agreements.
You got this.
Lease with confidence, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.